So welcome guys to the our second class for object-oriented programming. This week is the second week and we're gonna continue to our lecture. So in the last week, if you remember, I'm gonna share my screen with you. So in the last week, we were doing the scanner and J option pane class. So basically we were learning the swing library and the scanner class and how we can actually program using the environment in Java. So basically, just to repeat what we have done last week, if you didn't understand very well what we were doing, that we basically created a class called shape exercise, and using this exercise, we were trying to get different shapes and creating a menu for us, which people can choose whichever shape they like. And having done so, based on their selection, some sort of different operations will take place. For example, if they select square, they will basically enter one side of the square to calculate the area. If it is a rectangle, this will be two different sides, A and B. And finally, if it is circle, just the radius, as the pi value was given as final. So how did we do this? We created a menu, basically, and using this menu option, we made sure that the person who runs the program should select one valid choice, as you can see. So if I type 5, for example, or something else, the program actually gives me an error message and it doesn't show anything else. And even if I type something that, it's not valid, it will again display this error message. So when the user enters correct information, the one that is listed in here, let's say 3, then it says that we selected a valid choice. And then we can enter something, let's say 5, which will show 78.5 as the area of circle. So to construct a program like this, we basically follow the logic of offering the menu. Then we got the choice using J option pane. This was one of the classes, one of the statements we learned last week. Based on the choice that the user take, we converted it into the integer one. Now, this is one of the differences between C++ and Java. Basically, whether you use a scanner or a J option pane class, everything you get from the user using these static or dynamic classes is basically a string. It is not an integer. Even though you type there 1, 2, whatever, it is actually not an integer yet, because that's not how the class was designed to receive the information. Everything that JOption pane input dialog returns is actually a string. Hence why the choice str is a string. If I type, for example, choice here, this will give me an error message because JOption pane does not return an integer value, the input dialog box at least. So when we have done this stuff, we convert it into the integer. And we use a statement called try and catch, which I will use it quite often. This means that you kind of like try to run the statement inside try. So up to here, you try to run the statement, whatever you type inside. And if it doesn't run, the catch part would run. So it will try to run it. You try to basically capture the error messages rather than limiting it to the compiler, and the compiler finds them. You actually try to filter the error messages yourself. And that is the purpose of try and catch. From there onwards, all we do is to get relevant information in each section, such as we get the square, we get the rectangle, we get the circle. This is fairly straightforward. We ask user to enter whatever that shape requires, such as side, radius, whatsoever. And once this is done, we basically pass them into the relevant functions, which I'm going to come back and show it to you. So basically, when we get the information from the user, they should pass to the relevant functions, which is the other thing we learned last week. This means that as soon as you get some information, you can divide the program into different segments. These segments are called methods. Using the methods, you can basically allow certain operations to run and find you an output. Like in this one, for example, we have an area circle, we have a rectangle and square. Each one of them basically calculates a different thing. So that is the purpose of it. We also created another class which will allow us to get data, because each time the user basically entered something, we needed to, filter the information, make sure that it's valid and so forth. So I created another user-defined function, another method to capture that. And within that method, as you can see, I use try and catch as well, just to make sure that the data can be converted into a number. So basically what I did in this exercise is I was creating a class, and the class names and the file names should always match each other. Don't forget that. And based upon it, I divided the function into different methods so that I can deal each part of the program separately. Now, before I go further, do you have anything you don't understand about last week's exercises or anything? If you have anything you don't understand, please ask it now before I start to a new subject. You can either talk or ask it on the chat screen. I prefer you to talk if you have any questions. Is everything clear so far? Can you at least respond to me on the chat screen? Okay, now we're gonna go into a new subject then. This subject is called the GUI components in Java. So this is what we're gonna do. And after this subject, I'm gonna give you a project, which is actually uploaded on Moodle. So let's get started. The GUI stands for Graphical User Interface Components, which we're gonna use quite often in this course, and we're gonna basically spend some time learning them. These are listed in here: button, text, box, label, checkbox, radio button, and combo boxes. These are the basic ones. Okay, now in order to use these, you will basically need a container so that these objects or form components can basically be placed. So this means that there should be a form before you create these objects, and they should be contained within that form. Or otherwise, there will be no place for you to add them. So it is imperative that you learn how to create a form first. Now coming down there, we will see the JFrame basics. This is basically how to create the form in Java. You will learn how to basically create a JFrame in using the Java components. And from there onwards, we will see how we can put all these components that we have showed you, like label, like buttons, like JText field. All these components will be placed on what we call as a JFrame. Now, in order to use the JFrame, you got to learn a little bit basic object-oriented programming, because technically JFrame is a class that you can extend to create your own version of the JFrame. So it is actually an inheritance relationship in here. As you can see, when you create your own class, in this case, our JFrame basic, it will extend the JFrame, which means that it will inherit all the features of JFrame. And using that, using the features of the JFrame, you will now be able to edit them. So you can basically upgrade, you can change some specific features in the JFrame. You can basically adapt it to your own needs, whatever you want to do within that form. There's to make the form alive, we will also use something called action performed, which is under the interface called action listener. And whenever you type this, this should come like automatically. So action listener is the interface name. And having done so, once you have adopted the action listener, you need to have action performed automatically. If you don't type this, then it will not recognize the interface. So this is your interface, and this is your class. So this is the class that I'm extending. This is the interface that I'm implementing. And this is my own class, the one that I created. Okay. This is kind of like a pattern that we will follow throughout the course to create UI components. So every single form that you create will have this structure. Now you don't have to memorize this, of course, but as you type it, you will realize that there is a pattern here, and you will be more comfortable with it as you exercise. Going down now, you can edit the JFrame basics, such as you can edit the size of the JFrame, you can put a title if you want, you can set up a location, such as it can start when you put null, it can start at the center. And this is very important. You need to make sure that the form is visible, or otherwise it will be created, but it will not be shown. Going down, some of these features are already explained in here as I create them in my, exercises. I will also explain them more and more. But it's always, if you forget any one of them, like what they do or whatever, it is a nice idea to come here and check it. Such as the layout defines how components will be organized on your form. The size is actually the size of the form, but it uses some pixels from top and bottom. There's a title, which can be placed on the toolbar. There's the close operation, which means that the form will become the default form. That means once you close that form, the application will be closed. Location relative to, like, you can start the location of the form on a specific place. And finally, visible makes the form visible. Like I said, when you set up 400 pixels to 300 pixels, this is not going to be 100% true. You will lose some pixels from top and bottom. So it will like to lose 8 sideways for borders and 35 for the title bar. So it's not going to be exactly 400 and 300, but it's going to be close to that. So this is how we're going to proceed. So we're going to create a couple of, buttons in our first exercise, just to see how you can play around with UI components. So I'm going to go back to the NetBeans, the application that I was using. Now I will use NetBeans throughout these courses, but if you feel more comfortable with another tool, such as, I really strongly suggest IntelliJ, you can also use them. So the first thing I'm gonna do is to go to the File menu, create a new project, Java application. And actually, I'm not going to create it. I'm just going to create that there, new Java class, let's say. And I'm going to name it as UI first form. Or let's say first UI. That is the name that I'm going to give to my class. So as soon as I finish this, you will see my class being named there as the first UI. Now I'm going to get rid of some unnecessary information here, as you can see. And now I'm going to basically try to fill this class. The first thing that I'm going to do is to extend JFrame. This will allow me to use the JFrame features. However, as I type JFrame, as you can see, it did not recognize because we didn't tell the computer or the IDE where JFrame is coming from. So what we're going to do is we're going to press on Alt Enter on the keyboard. Okay. So just to show you once again on screen keyboard, I am pressing Alt and Enter, these two buttons. Okay. Alt and Enter. This one. So when I press on these together, it suggests me to import the necessary file there. So if I press on this, it will import the necessary statement automatically, and it will now recognize the JFrame. Now the error has gone. Now, having done so, we need to create what we call as the constructor. Now, we are learning a new concept now. Constructor. Constructor is the function or is the method that has the same name as your class. This is very important to know. So I'm going to write it down. Constructor, it could be more than one. It doesn't have to be only one constructor. Are the methods that have the same name. Let me just put this multiple comments as the class. When a constructor runs, an object is created for that class. So basically the purpose of a constructor is to create an object for that specific class. That is the only reason why you have a constructor, to create an object for that specific class. That's it. So why do we need to create an object? Because the class serves as a blueprint. The class is a blueprint, a template. The object is an entity. So whenever you want to create a form, the form itself is an entity. But the features, the properties of the form should be defined in the class. Okay, so the size, the title, everything we're going to define them in here, or allow the basically the object to manipulate them, and the rest will be done on the object part. So we're going to, for example, set a title for our form. This is our first GUI form. We're going to set size, let's say 500 and 300. We can set up a default close operation. Just as we did in the previous, we showed them in here. default close operation, JFrame, exit on close. I'm going to go back and type JFrame. And as soon as I put the dot, you can see that it's visible there. You can set up many properties like set location relative to, which will make sure that your form starts at the center. And there are many other things that you can manipulate. We can also set up a layout, set layout, and usually I use flow layout, although there are other layouts that you can use. So this is another object that we need to create, and we need to make sure that the import is there. The final thing that you should always put is set visible. If you don't put set visible, the form will be created but not shown. Put this to show the form. If you don't put this, your object will be created, but you will never see the form on the screen. Now, how do we run this? Now, we created all of this, everything is there, but how do we run it? Now, there are two ways to run. The first way is to put a main function inside here, just as we did in the previous exercise. You can simply come here, put a main function whatsoever, and create an object inside. That is the first way. How do we do this? Well, you just type the name of the class, first GUI form, give it a name, doesn't matter what it is, like form equals to new first GUI form. As soon as you say new, it means that I'm going to use this one. You see, this function. As soon as you put new GUI form, even when I highlight it, it goes there, as you can see, and I put all of this, everything there, and the constructor runs automatically. So to run this application, we can right click and run the file. And as you can see, the first GUI form runs. We see the form on the screen. Although there is nothing inside yet, we can see the form. Is there anything you don't understand up to this point? Are you there listening to me? Hello? So what we do at this point, I can show you the second way, new class. We can create, let's say, another class of main, doesn't matter again what you create. And once you create this class, you can simply put the main method instead of putting it the first UI form. This could be particularly useful when you have multiple forms in your application. You can put it there, and instead of running that class, you can run this one, and it will do exactly the same thing. As you can see, it can run and show the form. So this is actually a better way because you have an external dedicated class to show the, all the operations. So when you run this, the main one or whatever you call it, application class, it will basically run the form. Now, to fill the form itself, we're going to type a couple of components. I'm going to type a JLabel. I'm going to type them under the class, actually, coming in there. JLabel info label equals to new JLabel. JLabel is basically puts a label just like in visual programming. I assume you all took visual programming before, and it basically provides some information to the user, such as enter your name. We can put a text field, so that should be J text field, name text equals to name J text. Now, as I type, you will see that there are errors in here. So you can simply go Alt Enter and put the necessary library, which is at the top. One of the things that you will realize that it follows a pattern because all of these things are under the swing library. You see the JFrame is under swing, label under the swing, and also text field under the swing. So instead of putting them separately into imports stuff in here, we can actually come in here and just put a star, and it will automatically recognize these statements. So we can put something like enter your name. And J button. Oops, that should be a semicolon. Submit button. New J button. And I'm just gonna call it submit. Now to add them, we can come down and add them in here. You can simply say add to add each and every one of them. Use the names that you created, like info label. The next one was name text. Just putting in there. And the last one was the button, which was submit. Now we can't run this class. If you try to run it, there's nothing there because there is no main method. The class that we're going to run is this one, which has the main method. And as you can see, the information is there. So we can go now to the form. Instead of saying enter your name, we can give it a number such as 25. Just enough space for user to fill in. So when I run the main now, it will give it a space to type their name, as you can see. Okay. So currently, I can type my name and my surname and can press the button, but nothing happens, which is going to be the next step that we do. So I'm going to come enter name, comma, surname, and make this 20 characters. And we're going to learn how we can basically make this an action. To make the form alive, we're going to implement action list. We're going to press on Alt Enter, import the necessary statement, as you can see, and it will put the import. However, that is not going to be the only thing to fix the error. Now our basically class is missing the method to create. So we need to create the method to make sure that this is implemented. You can again press on Alt Enter and say implement abstract method, which then will basically create an action perform method down there. This will allow you to modify the content. You can manually type the action performed if you want. You don't have to, go there, press Alt Enter. You can manually type it. But probably it's a better idea to come here, press Alt Enter and put it there. Just to show you once again, I'm going to delete this. Come in there, Alt Enter, select the implement all abstract methods, and it will put the method down there automatically. We don't need to throw an exception, so I'm going to delete this. It already says to change the body of the code. Just change this part. So I'm going to, it comes with a comment already. So I'm going to delete this section because I don't need this. So I'm going to save. Now, one last thing is to make sure that this method is actually attached to the button. So we're going to make sure that the submit button has this. So we're going to say add action listener. Yes. This will make sure that the action performed is basically attached to the submit button. Now that we attach the action listener, we can do whatever we want with the action performed. So I'm going to come in here, create the variable called name. Now we want to basically get the name of the user and somehow show it, like a welcome message or whatever. So how do we do this? We can basically create a name value and say that name is this, which is this part is optional. Find the name text dot get text dot toString. Now toString part is again optional, but it's a nice idea if you put it there. So this will allow you to get the name text, whatever context, whatever content is there for the name text, whatever the user typed, get it and put it into a variable called name. Once we have done this, we can basically create a welcome message. So that's the next part I'm going to do, welcome message. And I'm going to type my welcome message. Something like, hey, this person, whatever their name is, welcome to Java, first Java UI. So once we have done this, we can now show this on the screen. We can say something like J option pane, show message dialog, this, which refers to this class, and I'm gonna basically put the welcome message here. Now trying to run the application, I'm gonna come in here, run the application, and I'm just gonna type my name, submit, and as I submit, you will see that, hey, this person, welcome to first Java UI form. It's visible there. And even when I change the name, let's change it to something else, you will see that name being displayed here. So the value is actually dynamic. Okay? It's very easy, as you can see. And you can even use things like, you know, \n, stuff like that in here. Like, let's put a \n and put the welcome message to the new line. Oops. So this one, run it again. I'm going to type my name, and as you can see, the \n works here. Welcome this person. Come to the first Java application. Any questions? Yes, okay. Now that I'm also talking to you on Guru Zoom to different people, so I understand that everything is clear now. So I'm going to move on. There's no problem. I cannot see your faces. I don't know if you follow, if you can understand. So it's always nice to respond to your lecture. You know, even saying, oh, yes, I understand it. It's cool. At least I know you are there and you are following and not watching Netflix at the same time. Okay? It's important to respond and reflect. Now that we created it, let's see how we can create two different buttons rather than one. So I'm going to create a clear button here. Just copy paste it, submit, and just going to type it clear. Coming down there, if I want to add another button, all I have to do is to copy paste this line and underneath implement it. So instead of submit, we're going to type clear. And we need to make sure that the clear button also has the action list. Otherwise, it won't work. So all of these processes, adding a new button, making sure that it's added to the form and action listener is attached, are also added in here. And when you basically run the application now, you will see that there are two buttons instead of one. So I'm going to make this form slightly bigger now. Let's say 550, a little bit bigger, maybe 600. And we'll be able to see two buttons there. You see clear and submit. However, there is a problem here. When I type my name and press on submit, it shows this, but it does the same thing when I click on the clear, which I don't actually want this. I want clear to clear the form component, this one, and submit to basically show this. So I want these two buttons to do different stuff. Instead of showing the same message and over again, I want them to do different jobs. How do we do this? So when we go back to the application, now we need to differentiate where the action event is coming from. So far, we have done all these messages and everything, but we didn't really differentiate which action is being triggered. So we're going to do something like this. If the variable here, AE, so I'm going to type it AE, dot get source is equals to submit button, which will basically make sure that it is the submit button that is being clicked. And if this is not the case, we can put an else if, and we can say AE get source clear button, which is the second one. So I just put if this one, else if the other one. And in the other one, I will make sure that the name component is being reset. So I'm going to say something like this, name text dot text set text, sorry, and I'm going to put empty inside, which means there's nothing. Its initial state was empty, so I'm going to use that. Now, because I differentiated with an if and else if, I understand now which button is being clicked. So if the AE, which is this variable here, you don't have to call it AE, you can call it something else. And if it is being clicked, it shows this button. And if it is the other one, then it does something else. So let's try to run this thing. Oops. We can run the default function. Again, I showed this to you in the last week. So all you have to do is to come here, right click on your project, go to properties. There's a run section there. Just type the name of the class here that you want to run. You can simply type main. The one that I run is the main. And when I press on the play button now, as you can see, that's the one that runs. So I'm going to type my name here once again, press on submit, and it shows my name, surname, welcome to Java form. If I press on clear, however, this time it clears it. You see, it is possible to show these things. Right? As you press on the clear, it clears the entire thing. So in one form, we learn about buttons, we learn about text field, and also label. We can put a label in here if you want underneath that and even change that information. If you don't want to show J option pane message, but rather change the output of a label, just to show it there, you can do that as well. All you have to do is to copy paste the label. So I'm just going to put the output label, new label, and let's say name is displayed here by default message. So if I want to show a label after the clear button, let's say, I'm going to put it in there, and that should be output label. Once I edit this, it is possible to show the output label there. So instead of showing a welcome message or whatsoever, you can actually make this a comment and make sure that let's put brackets here. Now it's multiple line, I gotta put the brackets, and output label dot text set text will be the welcome message. So instead of showing in the J option pane, show message dialog box whatsoever, I'm gonna display it using the output label. And I run this application now, you can see name is displayed here. It's a message there. So I'm going to type my name and surname once again. And the message is actually displayed there. And whenever you click on clear on it, we can also clear this. So we go back to the application, put the brackets. Now I didn't put the brackets before because I had only one line underneath it. Now I have multiple lines, so I'm going to put up label, set text, and empty. And running the application, submit, message is displayed, clear, everything is clear. See? You can do whatever you like with it. You can even put an error message here should you want to. It is possible to trigger the error messages, and it can be done very easily. You can simply put an if message here, such as if the name dot get length is less than 1, which means it's 0, less than 1 is 0, then you can display an error message. You can put something like J for champagne, show message dialog, this, enter a name, you can put an error, and finally J of champagne, error message. And expanding this, running the application. Now if I press on submit, as you can see, it says enter a name. Okay, so it is possible that you basically can manipulate the data however you like. You can run in here, enter a name, and once I enter a name, it doesn't show this error message, it actually shows it there. So there are multiple ways to do this. Now I'm gonna give you 2 minutes to check this code up. I'm gonna go and get my coffee. Think about this, look at this code, and finish this exercise. Make sure that it runs on your computer as well. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer when I come back. If you don't, I will continue and do another exercise. So have a look at the action performed, what I typed, for 2-3 minutes, and I'll be back. Yes, guys, I'm back. Sorry. Is there anything you want to ask before we go any further? Or shall I create a new project, a new file? So I'm going to continue since you have no questions. This one I'm going to put like um, color UI. I try to put output label, but not working. Okay, the output label, you should put it up there, just under the info label, once in here. Okay, copy paste it. Then go down, put it again underneath the button, the clear button. You see, info name, submit, clear, output, you put it there. So first you create it up here, then you put it under the clear button. That's the only thing you have to put on the form. In the action form perform part, instead of showing J option pane, show message dialog, this welcome message, you will make this a comment. You just need to put the output label, okay? And it's gonna be a set text rather than anything else. That is the only difference from the regular J option pane. Now I'm gonna go into the color form, the one that I just created, and we're gonna create another form this time. This one will be used to create a radio button. We will create a series of radio buttons, and we'll basically change the color as we go through. So some of the things that I already typed in here will still be available for every single form, such as the imports that I have. So the imports will be there automatically. Again, extending the JFrame, implementing the action listener. These will be available for every single form that we create from now on. And also the action perform method without the exception. It should be all available there. Okay. Now this is going to be kind of like a standard for us, just like you had integer main in C++. For GUI forms, this is going to be some kind of a standard. And with the object creation, we will also create a color form constructor. Going to create a constructor. You can put the brackets there. And within the constructor itself, you can type anything. You can even accept a string value if you want, such as it is possible to accept, for example, title here if you want. And all you have to do is to copy paste all the constructed features that you have, such as layout, name of the form, whatsoever. Now I created these. I'm just copy and paste them. It is possible that you pass down the title here, completely different, you know, size and so forth. Now the only thing left is to go to the main, and instead of saying first UI form, run this, we're gonna run the color form. We're gonna say something like color GUI form. And this one will be color as well. Now the color form accepts a string value inside. You can see that. In the first GUI form, we didn't have anything inside. It was just empty. In this one, I made it customized so I can enter some data, which is the title and comes in there. So you need to follow the structure that you create. If you create basically this, you need to give it a title. And I'm just going to give it a title in here, let's say radio buttons and color. All you have to do now is to basically run the application, and the empty form will be run. You see on the screen that there's an empty form bigger than the one before, and it's there. Now we're going to fill this form with different components. So far we learned about J button, sorry, we learned about the text field. We learned about the text field. We also learned about the labels. So we're going to expand our knowledge slightly, and we're going to make sure that we will apply colors if we like and customize our form. To do that, I'm going to add something called a radio button, which is going to be interesting to work with the colors. The radio buttons, if you go down, you will find them in the down sections. Let's just create them and you will see how it works. So I'm going to go back to the application. And I'm going to come in here, create 3 different radio buttons. J radio button, and give it each one a name. Blue radio, new J radio. And you can give it a name, blue, sure you want to. We will copy paste 3 of these, like totally 3 of them. So first one is blue, second one is red, last one is green. So it's going to be RGB, green, red, and green, red, and blue. And each one will be named accordingly as well. Green, red, and blue. Now that we have this, we will need to add them to our form. Can add them here, just anywhere after location, add each and every single button. Now, when you add them to the form and run the application, you see the buttons there. You see, I can click on them, every single one of them, and I can make sure that these are selected. However, this is not a very understandable logic because this is supposed to be a radio button. And in radio buttons, the way that we use them is that you have multiple options and you can only select one among the many. So we're going to go back to the application and we're going to create something called button group. This will allow us to create will allow me to create basically a selection group, so that each time when these are added to the group, then they will be part of the same selection, so you won't be able to select more than once. So instead of directly adding them, first I add them to the group, then I will add them to the form. So I add them first to the group, Then I add them to the form. The difference that you will see in here is that once I select the green one, the green is unselect, then I can select red and then blue. So I cannot select all of them at once now. I can only select one of them. Okay. It is possible that you modify the state of objects, how they are displayed on the form. It is possible to do that in Java. We are going to hard code some of these features now, but in the future, once we get comfortable, I will show you how to basically do all of this stuff using drag and drop features. For now, we're going to type everything hardcore just to show you your way around things, how you can manipulate states and so forth. As you can see from here, you can set a font size, even a color for each and every one of your components. So we can go back now to our application and set a new font. Now that I added them, we can set, for example, green radio, set font. I'm going to say new font and type a new font there. What was the font that they used? Use Verdana, so I'm going to use the same thing in here. It's a nice font. Every single computer has Verdana. We can put Bold, for example, and even define the size of it, like let's say 20. And we can do this for the other buttons. So we did it for green, we can do it for red, we can also put it for blue. And as we run the application, you see now that each one of these has a different, a bigger size. It is possible that you can also change colors. All you have to do is you come down here, set for color, and type the color that you like to see. First, for example, for the green one, I like to see the green. For the red one, I like to see the red. And finally, for the blue one, the blue. So running this application now, you will see that the colors have also changed. Now that we created these buttons, we can select them, but they don't do anything yet. So that's the next stage. So we're going to come down and create a new button here. This one, I'm going to call it going to be J button. Now that you have done all of this, we can come in here where you added the buttons, the radio buttons, and add the color button. Just like the radio buttons, we can change the color buttons font. All we have to do is to copy paste this. And let's make this one a little bit bigger than the others. And the color button is there. Running the application now, you see that there is a button which you can change the color now. We can make it slightly smaller like this to make sure that it looks better. So instead of 800, maybe I should make it 600. Let's try. A little bit less, maybe 500 and 500. Yeah, it looks nice now. As you can see, it matches the the size and so forth. And you can also change the background and the foreground for each and every one of these colors. So like you don't have to stick only the font color, but you can also change the background color. So whenever I set the color for the color button, I can come here and say set foreground color, let's say what color I want. Let's see. Let's do the opposite. So I'm going to make it white and background color. It does not matter whether you type this as, capital letter or lowercase letter in this case. It does not matter. So I'm going to run this application, and as you can see, the button colors also change now. It's black and white. So what I want to do in this application is when I press on this and change the color, I want this entire pane to be that specific color that I selected. Okay, so I'm going to come in here, add every single bit of them a background color as well, make it white. So instead of foreground, this should be background, background, background. And we can make this maybe white. See how it's going to look. I have no idea how it's going to look. Let's try it. Yeah, it looks okay. So now that we have, these colors there, it looks all right. So what we want to do is when we want to select one of the colors and press on the button, we want the entire pane to be that specific color. So what I want to do is I'm going to come in here and say color button, add action listener this. Now all the functionalities, everything that you type about design should be placed inside the constructor. Everything that you type about interactivity should be inside the action performed. Okay, so interactions are always inside the action performed. Now that we have the color button, we can come in here. Just in case if we have another button, we can put ae.getSource equals to color button. We have to make sure that this is going to be from this source, or otherwise if we have another button being added to the form, it will do exactly the same thing, and we don't want that. Now that this one is added, we will set up the pane color. So we can set the check property of every single button that we have. We have 3 different buttons, green radio. So we can say green radio dot is selected, which means is this the one being selected at the time when the button was clicked? So when the button was clicked, is it the green button being selected? And to do that, we're going to say something like get content pane dot set background color green, which we want it to be green when the user clicked on this. And if this is not true, we can put an else if here and select another color, which is red. And why is this yellow? We don't know. Let's fix it to green. And the red one will be here red. Finally, we need to do this for the blue. Else if blue. And I'm going to type blue. So we have three different colors, each one being selected. And once you select the correct color, you will paint the entire pane to that specific color. So let's try to run this application. I'm going to select green, and the entire pane is green now. I'm going to select red. Entire pane is red now. I'm going to select blue. Entire pane is blue now. So by selecting the color, you basically paint it to that specific color. Nice, right? Anything you don't understand. This is a very good exercise about how to handle the form components. You can understand a lot of stuff here that can help you. There's the action performed. There is the foreground, background, color, font size, making them bold, changing the font type, arranging the size, actions, and so forth. Okay. Any questions up until this point? Is everything clear? Okay, very good. Now that everything is clear, I'd like to give you your first project, which is already added on Moodle. If you have looked for the project sections, you will see it there. Now in this course, guys, I will only do one exam. The rest will be projects. As written in here, you will have 2 projects and final exam. Each of the projects are 30% and the final will be 40%. The final exam will be programming exam. You will have 2 questions. You will be asked to basically do the questions within the limited time that you have. And the projects are individual projects, not group projects. So when we come in here down, you will see your first project in here, summer 1920, project 1, and it's 30%. If you click on it, there is a big description. As you can see from the description, this is the date that the project is given, and that is the date that you have to submit, which means you have 2 weeks to submit the project. Let's read the project description. The project is given to you on the indicated date. Submission should be done on Moodle not later than midnight on the submission date. Any late submissions are not accepted and will be counted as 0. This is something I pay really big attention. If you are late to submit the project, I will not accept it and you automatically get 0. Okay, so pay attention. Make sure to submit the projects on time, otherwise I will give you 0 and you will get 0 from the project, and no matter how much you complain, I will not change my mind. So make sure to finish the project on the deadline or before. You can submit before as well. You must be the sole owner of the project. The code that you're writing should be object-oriented, should not have anything from the internet, okay? You should also not ask someone else to do your job. It should be done by you and so forth. There are mechanisms that we can check this now. We can scan certain engines like Google to see if there's a match to your code on the internet. So please don't try to copy paste. It will probably backfire. Finally, you need to use a layered architecture structure when completing the project. This means that you should do a clear separation between presentation and business tire and so forth. So this means that whatever you create as the form, you must make sure that everything works perfectly fine. And the project itself is actually a calculator. So you will need to create a scientific calculator, an advanced calculator, that not only performs plus, minus, division, and multiplication, but also performs certain operations like sine, cosine, tangent, log, or square root, or even finding absolute value, exponential, and factor analysis, the factorial. So basically, you're going to build up the scientific calculation using object-oriented programming techniques. It will have a similar interface as shown on the picture. You don't have to use exactly the same interface, but there should be only one text area. And as you type numbers in here, like click on them, they will be displayed there. In addition to performing basic arithmetic operations, the calculator should be able to find advanced mathematical operations such as natural logarithm, exponent, factorial, and so forth. The project you are going to create should be considered of at least two parts, a user interface and a business logic. The user interface should include the design and everything related to graphical user interface, which is what we are learning right now. And the business logic will do the operations. Okay. You can use drag and drop features of the IDE. However, it is strongly suggested that you design it yourself. At the end of this course, I'm going to show you how you can drag and drop components, but I really suggest you to design it the way that I do it, like this. So basically, putting everything there one by one, trying to run it just to see how it looks, maybe fix it, go back. This is a much better way because you will have more control. When you do drag and drop, you will not have this level of control on your application. And as you can see, there is only one text area. Don't create more than one text area. There's only one, and everything goes inside. So as you type numbers, add, subtract, or whatever, chain of operations should be handled, such as I will be able to add or remove and add or divide and add or multiply and add. So different kind of operations should be combined in the calculator and give me the proper result. It is ultimately important that chain operations are handled correctly by the calculator. So on the calculator, if you find something that you don't understand as a symbol, they are all written down there as well. Such as if you don't know what this symbol means, you can go down and find the square root of the number. So as soon as you type something there and press on this, it will show you the square root. What about this one? You go down and you look, that is the square. Square of a number. Find the factorial, find x to the power of y, exponential, and there's even open and close. So basically when you press on this, the calculator will be closed, which means there will be nothing here, or you can hide this component. And when you make it on, it will be visible. Okay. So that is your first project. And it is also the one that you have to submit in 2 weeks. So I really suggest you, because the summer school is so short, I really suggest you to start very early, like starting from today or tomorrow. Otherwise, you will struggle. It might be difficult for you to finish everything in 2 weeks. So it's better to start as early as possible. How are you going to submit this? Well, you're going to submit it online. There will be a small report that you have to write in addition to the project. There will be a project upload link here that I will open, and you will be able to upload it alongside with the small project format. Someone is asking to join, so let me just paste them the link. So that is the first project. If you don't have anything you don't understand, you can ask it now or at the beginning of the next lecture. Just to clarify, did you understand what to do in this project, the scientific calculator? Is it clear? Okay, cool. So you know what to do then. Good luck. So basically everything you type here will be the components that we already covered, such as we did cover buttons and we did cover today text fields. So you can already start doing this because as you can see here, everything is a button. You see, everything is actually a button. And we know how buttons work now. We saw them in the action. And we know the text field, which I showed you in the previous exercise. So you already have a very good idea of how to design this. Going back to Netflix now, NetBeans, not Netflix, NetBeans, we're gonna see how we can create check boxes. So we're gonna come in here and create another form. And this one I'm gonna call hobbies. And once again, I'm gonna delete some of this info and copy paste some features, such as extending the JFrame, importing the stuff that we already did. So we can come in here, copy paste, whatever. Gonna put a star here. And we can also press Alt Enter to implement the abstract methods. Get rid of the exception. And everything is ready. Now the next component that we're gonna learn is checklist, checkbox, which is basically like the radio button, but this time you can select multiple. So we're gonna create checkbox, check video games, name checkbox, and we're gonna create a couple of hobbies. Games. This would be J checkbox, so make sure to type it right. And I'm gonna create two more. Check this one, Netflix. Streaming Netflix. And one more, check football. Playing, watching. So these are basically a series of hobbies that you can have or you don't have at all. It's just like it's up to you. It's up to your character. You can have multiple of them. You can have none of them, or you can have only one of them. So basically, when there is multiple options to select and you are allowed to select more than one choices, this is called checkbox. If you have multiple options, you can select only one, then it is a radio button. But if you have multiple options and you can select more than one, then it is the checkbox. And that is the difference between two of them. The checkbox is a square where radio buttons is round. So in order to make sure these will be, displayed on the form, we're going to create a constructor, hobbies form. and we're going to put everything there inside. So once again, we're going to copy paste all these features we had in the previous exercise. So we're going to copy and paste them into the hobbies. Set layout, title. So this one is going to be hobbies form. And I'm not going to type the size. I'm okay with it. And I will leave it there. Now, what we need to do is to add these checkboxes to here. It is possible to add a new label directly here as well without creating it as a variable. So we can say something like select your hobbies. And then with each component, we add one, like check radio video games, check Netflix, and football. Now, in order to see how this is going to look, we're going to go back to the main, make this a comment once again, and copy paste this line. And this time I didn't put a title inside. If you have realized, there's no title, it's empty, just like the first exercise. So I'm going to leave it empty, and I'm going to type the name of the form, which is hobbies form. And this one will be the same, hobbies form. Now we can go back and we can run the application to see how it's going to look. And we say select your hobbies, video games, streaming Netflix, playing, watching football. I can select all three, or I can select none of them. So it's up to you. Now what we want to do in this case is I am going to add a button here. So I'm going to come, J button, and we'll say show button, J button. I'm going to type show my hobbies. And we're going to come down, type this, add show button. And the button will be visible there, as you can see. Right now, the button does nothing. Even if I select, you see, nothing happens. Oops, I got too big. Yeah, much better now. So even if I select it, nothing happens. So I'm gonna make sure to run this. I'm gonna come in down. How do I run it? Basically, I attach it to the action listener. Make sure that the action listener is attached to the button. And we can change the variable name here. Like for example, this time I'm going to change it to events. So don't assume that this is something standard. You can actually change its name. So we can say something like event.getSource equals to show button. Now to show the hobbies, we will basically create a string line, which is initially empty. And each time that one of the hobbies is selected, we're going to add it on the top of it. So we're going to say something like check video games selected. Then I'm going to add to my hobbies plus equals to video games. And we're going to do the same thing. Now, one major difference here is that we don't say else if because they can have more than one selection at the same time. So it's always if, not else if, just if. The next one will be check Netflix. And this one will be the same as what it types inside, streaming Netflix. We have one more, I think, and that is football. So we're going to come in here, check football. And the hobby that should be listed is playing, watching. You can put \n for each and every one of them should you want to, just to, list them. And you can even put like your hobbies are something like this, and in each line it shows them one by one. And that's it. That's all we had to do. Now what we need to do is to show this. Now as we go along, we need to show it on the screen. So when the button is clicked, we're going to say something like option A, show message dialog, and we're going to show the hobbies. Now running the application, we have video games. Your hobbies are video games. Your hobbies are streaming Netflix and video games. Your hobbies are playing, watching football, streaming Netflix, video games. So if I remove streaming Netflix, you see video games and playing, watching football are my hobbies. If I remove this, it's only video games. If I make sure that this one is the one, you see the combinations work absolutely fine. So whichever ones you select, it shows them on the list. Okay. That's how check box works. Is this clear? Did you understand how it works, the checkbox? So going back to the exercise, all I did was making sure that these are added, the buttons are there whatsoever, and each time you do a selection, now it's only if statement, because this means that you can select more than one choice at a time. That's all I want to do for today. There's one more thing I like to show you before I end up my lecture. If you don't have any questions, I'm going to show you that part too. So while we created these components by hand, just writing every single line, defining the code and stuff like that, you don't actually have to do this. There is an option in NetBeans that will allow you to drag and drop JFrame components. All you have to do is to right click, new, instead of saying Java class, come here and select JFrame form. When you select the JFrame form, type a name for it. Let's say my form. Doesn't matter. But be careful because you won't be able to change this name in the class file. So make sure this is something that you really want to. You can change it later by refactoring. So refactor, rename, that's the only way to change it. And now that you created this, you can actually size the form, as you can see. You can drag and drop components like label, like button, and also like text field. So you don't have to write these things one by one. You can drag and drop them if you like. You can even select multiple components at once and change their property. For example, I want to change, oops, I want to change their font to Verdana, just like I did in my previous exercise, and make it 18. So every one of them can be Verdana and 18. This one could be something like, give it a name, such as name text, and it's private. We can come in even here and find the text property and change it if you like. Let's find the change text property. Yeah, it's here. So I'm going to change it to nothing. And we can size it, as you can see. And I can type in here text property. Oops, go up and enter name. And this one can be submit. We need to make sure that the text properties are all changed, but also make sure to change the name of the components that you're going to use. Such as to change the code component, you need to go to the code part, make sure that the variable name is the one that you want. Like in my case, I change it to this name text, and I'm going to change it to submit button. This one, not J button one, but submit button. I'm giving it the name that I'd like to have, which is very important because then you wouldn't forget which button or which component does what. The problem with this, however, is that there's a lot of auto-generated code at the background. So if you go to the background of the code, you will see that there's quite a little bit of information going on. So it might be a little bit difficult to understand where you need to type the code to make the program run. So if I go to double click on it, you will see that there's a submit button action performed, but there's also a lot of auto-generated code which you can't even delete. I'm pressing on the delete button on my keyboard, like I can show you on the on-screen one. Like, look, I selected here, pressing on this, or pressing on the delete, it doesn't work because this is an auto-generated code and you can't really change it. The only way to change it is to go back to the form, to design, and try to change it from there, which could be a tedious experience for those who don't know what they are doing. So this is why I really strongly suggest you to learn hard coding first, like the way that I did it in here. And once you feel comfortable with every single form, once you understand how this works, how the forms communicate, how action performed are, laid out and it's working and communicating, then you can go to the design. Okay? If you don't do this, however, it could be difficult for you to follow. You can easily fall into a trap that you design something really good, but actually nothing works, which is a problem that I see every term with students. They like to use these design features, but then they don't understand the code at the background that is auto-generated, and somehow they cannot produce the efficient result. Okay, just to show you how this is going to work, you can simply double click on it, the part where you can type here. Make sure to define the variable. Oops. Come in here, define the variable. Name is this, name text dot get text. This functionality could be very useful to find the component you are looking for, because as soon as you type this, it shows you a list, as you can see, of all the functions and all the variables that you have. So if you forget, for example, what was the name of my text field or what was the name of my button, this is a good way to reach it out. Now to show it, we can show something like JOption pane, show message dialog, I'm gonna name this as this. Hello, this person, whatever their names are. Hope you enjoyed Java Forms. Now, when I close this, the only thing that I will need to do is to run this. Now, it's a runnable file, and as you can see, it will run automatically as I type it. So I'm going to type my name and my surname and press on the submit, and it shows the message. Hope you enjoyed Java Forms. It uses its own version of Swing, so it's not exactly Swing, but kind of like NetBeans version of it. But fairly everything is the same. It's just the look is a little bit different, but the way that it works is exactly the same. Okay. So I have been talking nonstop for 2 hours now, and I'm tired. Do you have any questions before I end today's lecture? Did you understand drag and drop features, radio button, checkbox, buttons, text fields? We have seen quite a lot today, right? So, do you have anything you want to ask before I end my lecture? As I told you before, these sessions are recorded and I'll upload it to YouTube as soon as our session is gone. The one that we did last week is available there. So if you actually go here to the YouTube page, you will see our first class there. If you click on it, you will be able to watch the entire class once again if you like. All right. Some random comments are there, so I'm just going to remove it. So make sure to look at this. Seems like nobody is watching them. So it's a nice idea to go back and see how I did the previous exercises. For example, the one that we solved last week, it's there. And the one that I solved this week will be uploaded as well. Now, before I end up this lecture, do you have any questions, guys? Okay, then. Well, since you don't have any questions, I assume everything is all right. Thank you for coming to my class for today. Don't forget that you have a project now and you must do it yourself. Please don't ask others to do your project. Understand exactly what you need to do and do it yourself. This is for your own good. Because Java is one of the main valid languages that being used in the industry today. If you learn this language very well, it could be if you increase your employability basically. So make sure to understand what needs to be done exactly. Okay. Yavuz, we only have lectures every Monday. We don't have any other day. So no, okay? We only meet once a week. All right? So it's from 10:30 to 12:30. That is my lecture hour. But if you have extra questions and you want to discuss, you can discuss it within these sessions at the beginning. This is why I'm asking you several times. Do you have any questions? Ask it now. Okay, please write your questions if you don't understand anything and ask me by the beginning of next session. All right. Thank you for coming today. Have a lovely week. I'll see you guys next week. Take good care.